Hi friends, welcome to WebChamp. So in this video, I am going to discuss controls in Power Automate. So I already discussed in my previous video that how to start using the controls. So basic is like how to use if else, that is nothing but a condition. How to use a switch. So if you wants to create a multiple branches based on the conditions and you don't know what would be the result of your expression, so in that case we can use switch for the multiple possible cases, and according to that specific case, wherever it gets matched, that case will be executed. So this is the two condition and switch actions are used for the conditional flow execution. And if you like to work with the arrays or items of arrays, in that case, you can use apply to each loop. That is nothing but for loop in your programming languages, and do until loop. That is nothing but while loop in programming. So this much part I discussed in my previous video. If you have not seen, go and watch the earlier video. So here in this video, I'm going to discuss two more controls. That is nothing but a scope and terminate. Right. So what is a scope? Okay, or when to use a scope? So scope is, it is not going to perform any kind of action. Okay. Even it is not going to loop through the data. It is not going to check for the condition. Then what it does? Right. So scope is used as a container for the group of actions. That will just allow you to separate a set of actions together into a logical block. That's it. So that one task can be completed in one scope, and then once that gets executed properly, then next task will be started. So like we can say you have to extract the data, okay, from the Power BI, and once you extract the data, you might need to add those many rows to the Excel, so you can do that entire operation in a single scope. If this gets succeeded, and then you have to send an email that the file has been updated or the flow is successfully completed, or what could be the status of flow. So next you can send an email after the scope. Okay. Or what you can do is you can perform the any other, like if you have updated an Excel file on the OneDrive, you can create a copy of that file on SharePoint also. You can send that file in an email to the person also. So like this. So extracting the data and adding rows to the Excel is your one bunch of action. So many things you will do in between. So everything will be grouped as a single case, that extract and load. This is simple example of scope. But terminate, when to use the terminate? Okay, let's say your action that is used for the reading the data from the Power BI is got failed because of XYZ reason. Okay, maybe the Power BI report is not available from where it is trying to pull the data. Maybe report name is changed, right? Reason could be anything. So in that case, I don't want to execute the further actions like sending an email or making a copy of the file on the SharePoint. So in that case, we can use terminate if The scope throws error. If scope gets failed, I would like to terminate the flow. And before termination, I may send an email. Right. So like this, you can use the scope and terminate for the error handling also. The way in programming we have try, catch, finally, except blocks in the error handling or exception handling in the programming. Similarly, you can build the logic here using the scope and terminate together. Right. So here I'll take an example that is something different, not the one which I discussed sometime before. So I would like to create a flow, uh, approval flow. Okay. So someone will give the access. Meaning someone will raise the request. So here I'm sending a request automatically. I'm not doing anything. And it will wait for the person input. Okay, who is going to, who has received that request for approval. So based on the approval status, you may want to perform the two different things. Right? If the flow or the status of approval outcome is approved. So in that case, you may want to send an email, update an item in the SharePoint or add and rows to the Excel file to save the data, right? But let's say the request is rejected. I don't want to save the data. You can try to save the data with the rejected status, but you may want to send an email with the rejection status to that specific person and terminate the flow, right? So why you want to terminate the flow after the rejection? Because see, once the approval is rejected, meaning the approval status is rejected, you need not to perform a much. So what we will do is we will send an email only and then we will terminate the flow so that flow execution will be completed. But all the things will happen as we want, but the flow is or the request is not approved. So request could be for the leave request, for the any other kind of reimbursement approval request in your organization, or it could be for the like transport request. It could be like getting an access request for any of the resources, organization resources, right? So request could be of any type. So we can't control. So I just considered here as a request. Okay. So I'm not wasting time on creating a flow. So I have a flow created here with me. So I will just show you how it works. Right. So here the flow is created with the manual trigger. Then approval status, I created a variable as an approval status. Okay. If you want to store the result of approval response. So we can do that also. Even I don't need this. I'm not using this anymore. Okay. So what I did is I selected an action that start and wait for an approval. So I selected approval type as a reject, approve or reject, first to respond. So this will wait. So when you select first to respond, this will wait until this action will receive a response. Okay. Then I gave the title as a approval for testing, and this is the email address to whom it is going. Okay. You can make this dynamic and enable notifications. So notifications are enabled. Reassignment is possible if that person wants to reassign this, so he can delegate the request to someone else. Then requester and attachment. So you can use these parameters, but this is sufficient. Okay. So this is standard approval. Approvals is the application, the way we have application like Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate is one of the part of Office 365. Okay. So request will be generated from this step, and based on the outcome. So what I did is, so body and outcome of the uh, start and wait for an approval step. Here you can see. What I will do is I will go and I will perform something like if the request is true, I'm going to add a row. Okay, I'm going to add a row into a table. So I'll just add a approver request, meaning the requester ID, sorry, approver ID and approval status. Okay. So this is what I did in case if it is approved, and I'll send an email stating that the request approved. Okay. This much I'm going to perform. This is fine. Okay. If the request gets failed, so what I did is I added a scope here. Inside a scope, I will send an email. Outside of the scope, you should not terminate this in the scope. Okay, it is always good practice to terminate the flow outside of the scope. Okay, even here you by default there is a scope. You have a scope that is true and false scope. Okay, so if I run the flow, you will be able to see this execution on the response, how it execute. So based on the condition, if someone approves, someone meaning whoever has received the request to approve, so here it will come to me only, but in your case, that person will be, or the data will be dynamic. So as per the process. Okay, and this is waiting. Okay, so request received, approval request. This is how it comes in Teams for the approval. And let me say approve. So now request is approved. Right, request is approved. So now final status approved. And here you can see expression result is outcome says true. Right, expression result is true. So if this is true, then which block should be executed? So scope from the true block. So here it got executed. The row is successfully added. Even you can see email has been sent sometime before. It's 4:25. So I may see an email in my sent box at 4:24 p.m. Okay, fine. So this is how it works. Even here approval request you can see in the email. This is how I receive email, or the people whoever is approver for the process, they will receive an email that this is waiting for your approval. Okay, even I updated there. Here you already completed this request. This is how the status got changed in the email. This is something got updated when I say approve there, or when the action is completed. Now what I will do is I will rerun the flow. Okay, I will rerun the flow, but before rerunning the flow, if this condition falls, if this condition or this expression returns a false, what it will does, it will start the execution of false scope. Okay, So here it will just trigger an email and it will come. So in terminate, we have a different statuses that you can set the status to the succeeded, failed. In case of failed, you can add the error message here. In case of cancelled, you need not to do anything, but yes. So I would like to say my flow is succeeded, right? So I'm not going to do anything. So let's see and run this, but this time I'm not going to approve the flow. Okay, so now I'm going to reject the request. So let's say reject. Even you can add the comment. So request approval status is rejected. Now you can see the execution of flow. Now this flow is executed on the false side, right? And it must have triggered an email that approval request rejected. You can see this is at 4:27, right? And this is terminated with the status succeeded. So this status it shows, okay, succeeded and all. So you have to define. So in case if this gets failed, okay, in case if this gets failed, so this should, that you can specify here terminate status as a failed. If any action got failed, you would like to terminate that flow on that specific point. So you can say terminate and all here, but failed and then cancel. If someone cancel the execution, so in that case, you can set the status as you want, right? So scope, if you ask me, it is just a block that is used to group the set of actions together into a logical block. And this is just used to organize. Okay, so I can minimize here in scope. I can minimize the actions so that it will be a good visualization for you. Even you will be able to work properly here. The conditions, this block or this condition, loops, everything, whatever you will pick from the control actions, so that all that are behave like a block or scope, right? So you can minimize here also, except termination. Termination is the termination only, right? Then you can use the scope for the parallel execution also. Okay, how to do that? How to do that, right? So okay, I'll what I will do is I will go and I will say edit. Okay, I'm not using this. Let me delete this. Even I would like to delete this. What I want to do is I want to start the two different executions at the same time. So I will use scope. Again, I will add one more action. I will use scope here. Okay, but by sequence it picks. So what you need to do is, this is fine, but here even if you want to run, so configure the run after. Okay, this is, and go to the setting, and here you can select the action at this and remove the first. So both the scopes are going to run at the same time, right? So this is how you can achieve the parallelism, or you can do a conditional execution of grouped actions also. You can add conditions and then you can run two different scopes. This is what I did sometime before. I shown you how it works with the approval status is approved or rejected, right? So parallel execution you can do. This is possible. Error handling, you can try with the error handling also using the scope. So if the first scope returns the error, then you can define what you want to do with the next scope. Right. So what it does, it improves the readability of your flow diagram, and even you can isolate the errors So what will happen by defining the processes or part of flow in a scope, you will be able to understood at what point this is throwing the error. So based on that, you will be able to debug. Even you can define the run after configuration for the parallel running based on the success failure of entire scope. So what I will do is I will say here, and let's say, okay, I'm not going to do here. I will say run after. Let me add this action. Let me remove this. So based on the successful, whatever would be the status. Okay, whatever would be the status, right? So based on the status of this, whether this gets successfully executed or not, has a timed out, okay, has failed. If this gets failed, then I want to execute this. This is how you can define for the scopes. So this is specifically used to control the flow of execution. Terminate is an action. It's not a block of scope used to end the flow immediately with a specific status. So you can define the status like cancelled, failed, or succeeded. So failed is used when flow ends with an error. So cancelled is used when flow has cancelled. Then terminate action terminate the flow, entire flow, not just a branch or scope. Okay. So this terminate is not going to terminate the scope or any specific branch of conditions or any other branch. Okay, a scope branch. It will terminate the flow. So before using it, you should use the terminate carefully, and especially inside the scope whenever you want to use, because if you add the terminate inside the scope, it will stop the execution of flow. So how to and when to use as a conclusion, if you ask me, so scope used for the group actions and manage logic cleanly. Terminate should be placed outside of scope when possible to avoid the confusion, and combine with configure run after to handle the error gracefully. Okay, errors to handle the errors, you need to configure the run after and route flow execution accordingly. Meaning I shown you here, okay, but if I add like this, any other action, let's say if my select action gets failed, okay, and I would like to execute this. So if this fails, I would like to execute this, right? So this is how I can say select, and if the select has failed, in that case, I would like to execute this. So this is how we can create a branch. This will be executed when this is successful, right? And if this will be executed if this is failed. So this is how you can use the scopes. So this is all about the scope and terminate in the Power Automate. So let's start using the scope and terminate in your actual development. So I hope you like the content of this video. Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a nice day. Do not forget to subscribe webchamp and be stick, or I can say learn the technology easily. Thank you.